The Korean literary world celebrated again this year when another translated Korean novel was nominated for the prestigious International Booker Prize. It was announced in March that Hwang Sok-yong's Mater 210, translated into English by Sora Kim-Russel and Youngjae Josephine, was longlisted for the prize, and in April it made the final shortlist as well. The final winners will be announced later this month on the 21st. And I am delighted to say today that we have joining us via video for a very special interview the two translators behind the nominated work. We have with us Sora Kim-Russel and Josephine Youngjae. Ms. Kim-Russel and Ms. Bae, hello, and it's an honor to have you on the show today.
Hello, thank you for having us.
So congratulations on having your translation of Mater 210 nominated for the 2024 International Booker Prize. This is, of course, a very prestigious prize that not only celebrates world literature and international authors, but also the translators who help bring these works to the English-speaking global audience as well. How do you both feel? Let me start with you, Ms. Bae. What were you doing when you heard the news?
I was in my PJs at home when an email from our publisher arrived in the evening. In the first paragraph, it said Matter 210 had been shortlisted. And then the rest of the email said our book was longlisted. So I was confused at first. And then I thought, well, you can't possibly know what will be on the shortlist that early. So I soon assumed that the word shortlisted must have been a typo the publisher made because they were just as excited as we were about the news.
Well, you are on the shortlist now anyway, so it's all that ends well, I guess. So, Ms. Kim-Russel, this is not the first time, actually, that you have translated Hwang's works, and actually not the first time that you've been in the running for this prize either, because in 2019, your translation of another of Hwang's works, At Dusk, was longlisted back then for the award as well. Does it feel different this time round? How does it feel? I guess you are one step closer to winning now that you are on the shortlist.
Yeah, I guess the reality of being shortlisted is a bit different. I mean, Hwang Sok-yong as well has sort of jokingly talked about how he's been longlisted so many times for different prizes that when he got the long list news, he was kind of like, yeah, okay. But it feels a bit different now, especially since we get to go to London for the big reveal. I mean, that already is like such a reward. So it's exciting.
Right, so you've spoken to Hwang since the announcement then, Ms. Kim-Russel. What has his reaction been like?
Oh, well, I just heard his answers in interviews that he gave, but he's pretty excited, it seems.
Well, it is pretty exciting, and it is quite a special work as well. Ms. Bae, can you introduce this novel to us as well for our listeners? Can you tell us what it's about and also how you came across it?
Well, the project first came to Sora, and we ended up doing a joint translation. But let me see. So Matter 210 is a multi-generation tale about a family of ordinary workers that spans over 100 years between the Japanese occupation of Korea and the 21st century. It's a portrayal of colonial brutality and laborers constantly struggling to adapt to the changing times. But this is essentially what the book blurb communicates. But it doesn't say much about what I like about the story. It includes, Matter 210 includes various episodes that almost read like folk tales, which is the author's Mindam style at work. And those tales feature some interesting female characters, like Shingumi, the grandmother of Ijino, who's the fourth generation of the Yi family. Kumi is portrayed as both a new woman who craves education, but she also has foresight, almost like a traditional Korean shaman So that, I think that makes her really interesting. And there's also Chino's great grandmother, Chuantek. Now she's this like female superhero who doesn't think twice about diving into floodwaters to fish out watermelons and pigs for her family and people stranded on top of a hill. So those are the things I like about the story.
Right, so it is quite an epic, multi-layered tale. So, Miss Kim-Russel, Miss Bear was saying that you're the one who brought her the book. So how did you come to translate this work? Was it because of your previous connection with Hwang?
Right, yeah. So I had translated 3 novels by him before, and so his agent, pretty much, I guess you'd say, automatically contacted me first to see if I would be interested. And to be honest, I was ready to say no to the book because I was expecting my second child, and it's a very long book. And as Youngjae explained, it's an epic book. There are lots of side stories. I didn't think that I would have the time to do it, but I thought that Youngjae would be perfect for the project because of her experience. The translation projects that she has done, she's handled a lot of historical material. And from what I had seen of her literary translation work, I thought that she would just be a great fit for the challenges that the book presents. And so I contacted Youngjae and she said, no way. But she did somehow in the conversation, the idea of maybe co-translating came up. And so and she agreed to that. And so, yeah, so that was how we decided to work on the project together.
I see. So, Ms. Bell, why was it no way at first? You were shaking your head earlier as well.
Honestly, I don't think I've felt like I was good enough yet.
Mm.
And but I jumped at the opportunity to do a code translation because I knew I would be able to learn a lot from the experience. And this is essentially the first work of fiction, translated fiction that's published in both our names and my name. So I think I was scared, and that's why I said no.
But obviously, Ms. Kim-Russel, you saw something different.
Yeah, to be fair, it's a lot to ask of somebody as what would be their first translation project. But for sure, like I said, I met Youngjae through a translation workshop. I was teaching a workshop at the Literature Translation Institute of Korea. She was a student in the workshop. We only worked together for a semester, but one of the stories that she worked on had dialect. It had all sorts of very specific Korean cultural references that didn't have easy translations. And her work was fantastic. Like she handled it with aplomb. And so when this book came up, she was, like I said, the first person that came to mind as someone who would be a great fit. But at the same time, I completely understood and empathized with the fear because it's a huge, it was a huge project.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how co-translation works. I think a lot of our listeners would be curious about that. So, Ms. Kim-Russel, how do you go about co-translating a book together?
Well, there are a lot of different ways of approaching that and of splitting up the book. The way that we happened to split up this project was basically I did the first 2 chapters. I had done the first 2 chapters as a sample for the publisher and Hwang Sok-yong's agent. And then because I was at that point on maternity leave, Youngjae did the next 9 chapters. And then when she was done, so that was her half of the book, were those next 9 of the 18 chapters. And then when she was done, then I came back in and did the end of the book. And then we swapped pages and talked about what do we do with all of these challenges, all of these things that we then needed to resolve about the translation.
When you say challenges, is it specific translation of passages? Is that what you're saying, like words or some sort of perhaps words that perhaps not in the English language, things like that?
Yes. So, for example, things like communist slang terms, which were doubly tricky because not only did they not have direct equivalents, but even to transliterate the words, they looked similar to existing Korean words.
Sure.
So
Sure.
so we spent a lot of time talking about how to handle
Sure.
things like that. Yeah.
Ms. Bear, how was that process like? What was it like doing that co-translation together? And what do you make of your final translation as well?
Well, it definitely looks a lot different than my first draft, in a very good way. We were asked a similar question last night about the challenges and the benefits of co-translation, and we agreed that the benefits far outweighed the challenges, because translation can be a very lonely process, and with co-translation, you always have someone to discuss all the details with. So it's a great support system that you don't get when you're working alone.
And Ms. Bear, what have you made of the reaction that readers have given to the book, and the reaction it's getting internationally now with this nomination? Is this something that you expected?
I didn't expect to be nominated at all, so
Do you think this work would, translate to people, that would reach and touch people who weren't familiar perhaps with some of the history involved and some of the cultural references involved?
I think people are a bit divided when it comes to this book, because it's a long book. There are a lot of so-called info dumping sections where it almost reads like nonfiction. But I think if you have enough patience, you'll get through, and you realize that all those details eventually do end up affecting the lives of the characters in the story. So it can be a very rewarding read when you get to the end.
Sure. What about you, Ms. Kim-Russel? This book has been longlisted, and it is also the latest in a number of Korean works that have been translated and shortlisted for this award in recent years. We had Bora Chung's Cursed Bunny, Chun Myung-wan's Whale as well. What do you make of this recognition that Korean literature is getting nowadays in recent years?
I think it's great. I think it shows how hard, not just to us, but translators, the translators of the books that you mentioned, how hard they're working, and the care and love that they're putting into the books that they translate. I think it also shows, too, how these books do connect with readers. Like with Hwang's book, it is a historical novel. It takes place mostly in the past, but it has a lot of relevance to things that are happening right now. And I mean, even like earlier today, I was looking at the news, looking at Twitter, and like looking at the protests that are happening on college campuses in the U.S. And each time I see news stories like that, especially these days, I automatically think about Hwang Sok-yong's book and the events that take place in the book, and how these moments from the past, these historical moments, keep coming back to revisit us. And I think that was part of what he was doing with the book itself. By having it go back and forth between past and present, he's showing us how the past is never past, right? To use that quote. And I suspect that that's why it also resonated with the Booker judges and readers who have embraced the book. And that can be said of other Korean books in translation as well, that something in the stories, something in the way the stories are told is really resonating with readers, which is just fantastic.
Indeed. And it's almost, we're almost there. May 21st, that is going to be the day when the winners are announced. Maida 210 is one of 6 works that have been shortlisted. Do you think you will win, Miss Kim-Russel? And what would it mean, do you think, for you and for Korean literature and for Hwang as well to win?
Gosh, I'm to be honest, I'm sort of actively not thinking about it too much. But that said, it would for Hwang Sok-yong, he's this book in particular. He talks about how it was 30 years in the making. I know it would be extremely meaningful for him. I would love for Youngjae to have a major prize on her debut fiction translation. So in that respect, it would be quite a thing.
Well, we wish you both the best of luck come May 21st, and we'll be cheering you on, of course, from here in Seoul. And we've been speaking to Sora Kim-Russel and Youngjae Josephine Bae, the translators of the International Booker Prize shortlisted work Mater 210 by Hwang Sok-yong. Thank you once again, both of you, for your time today.
Thank you for having us.